Big Mom versus Queen. Now, will this fight actually take place? Now, ever since the whole Oshiriko thing was brought to our attention, everyone was of the mindset that it was going to play some role between Queen and Big Mom. But since that whole thing is over with Luffy and Hyo eating everything, is there still a chance that Big Mom and Queen would still fight even though there isn't any incentive there since Yoshiriko is now gone? Now, there might not be an incentive for Big Mom, but there's definitely one for Queen, given as there is a freaking Yonko in their territory. What would Queen do if Big Mom decides to destroy the entire prison? Obviously, with Big Mom being in a nerfed state, semi-nerfed, I'm pretty sure he can do something, but definitely not enough to beat her even in her current state, as we saw that even a non-capable Big Mom was almost impossible to beat. The only thing that they could honestly do to Big Mom was to hold her back. So I'm pretty sure the same thing would apply here with Queen. So this really brings me to the question, how would a fight go between a Yonko and a Yonko commander? Now, the obvious answer here is that the Yonko will win regardless, but at the same time, commanders aren't scrubs, especially when the strongest one is brought into question. Now, people would say that a good example of this would be Luffy versus Kaido and how that went down. Since Luffy is around first commander level and we saw what happened to him against Kaido, we can make the assumption that this is what would happen to any commander level individual if they go up against the Yonko. Now, for the most part, we know that any commander would lose to their captain without a doubt, but I feel like the Yonko would still have to put in some effort, even if it's a little. Now, in the case of Luffy, of him getting one shot, that's not really the best example that we can use, because Luffy went into that battle with the thought that his crew was hurt by Kaido's attack, which made him attack Kaido in a fit of rage, which isn't the best thing to do if you're fighting against the top tier. If anything, you have to be calm and collected if you're going up against someone of that caliber. We saw what happened to Katakuri, someone who was untouched for a good amount of time during his fight with Luffy, who was then exposed once he let his emotions get the better of him. The same can be said for Luffy versus Kaido. If you're fighting a top tier individual, clouded judgment can mean a lot. And with Luffy, he went into that fight recklessly and acted based on his emotion, which ultimately led him to lose that fight in a one shot. Now, if Luffy knew what he was doing and he was mentally stable going into that fight with Kaido, with the crazy resolve that he usually has, that fight would have gone a lot differently. And we also know that one has to be calm to use observation haki, which could have helped Luffy in that fight, even though he would lose in the end. But it's safe to say that Luffy wouldn't get one shot if he was in the right state of mind. And so I wouldn't say that Luffy versus Kaido is how a battle between a commander and a Yonko would go. And we also know that matchups is very important when it comes to fights. For example, Big Mom versus Katakuri would go a lot better for Katakuri than, let's say, Katakuri versus Shanks, because Katakuri's future sight will come in handy against slow heavy fighters like Big Mom. So Queen might actually have something that would make him hold his own against Big Mom's fighting prowess. So I'm actually kind of curious as to how a battle between these two would go. And given that Big Mom isn't exactly in her usual state, we know for sure that she can be exploited in battle quite easily. This was shown in Whole Cake with how Jinbei, Nami, and Brook were able to get a one-up against her. And by that, I mean that they could only stall her to some degree. But Big Mom right now is definitely in a better state than she was during Whole Cake Island. The only difference here is that Big Mom isn't self-aware. It's not like her powers aren't actually working like it was during Whole Cake. It seems like her state of mind has gone back to that of a child. However, she still retains all of her combat abilities. So I'm actually looking forward to what is going to happen between Queen and Big Mom if something does happen, because at this point I'm not entirely sure. Now, I do think Luffy is going to get into a scuffle with Queen as well, which would help him awaken this new form of ornaments that he definitely needs. But ultimately, I think they get interrupted by Big Mom's presence there. So, I'm not entirely sure how the whole prison thing is going to go down, because there's so many elements right now. So yeah, and I also said that this could be a turning point for Wano, because if Queen informs Kaido that Big Mom is here, Kaido is definitely going to make his move. And something I do want to point out is that while the Yonkos are overpowered, they aren't as almighty as people would make them up to be. They have weaknesses, and these weaknesses can be exploited. We saw it with Big Mom, and we're probably going to see something with Kaido, because there has to be something that they can use against him if they want to take him down. So even though the difference between commanders and their captain is quite vast, commanders aren't fodders even by top tier standards. But comment down below what you guys think, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe for more One Piece content on this channel. Follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace, and it is Ferro, and I will see you guys later. Peace.